Good evening, everyone. I thank God for this time which God has given us to look into His Word. And as for today's session, we are looking into Mark chapter 1, verses 16 to 45. I request you all to be ready with your Bibles. And as we look into this text, we understand the intent of the author for what he is writing, and also the message that he wants to give to us all. So as we were looking into Mark's gospel today, as you all know, that the title that was given was Kingdom Goes Public. The kingdom is going public, and there are three responses which we see towards this kingdom. There are three responses that we see, and these responses are from disciples, crowds, and opposition. From Mark chapter 1, 16, we looked into the prologue from chapter 1 of chapter 1, verses 1 to 15. That's what we saw. And that was the prologue, that the summary and the advent, the beginning of the gospel, where we looked into the witnesses of John the Baptist, of Mark himself, and God as Jesus was getting baptized. And as we go into from verses 16 onwards to 3:6, there are three responses towards this kingdom. As Jesus initiates this kingdom, we see that there are three responses, or three kinds of people that approaches, or we see that there are these responses that comes in front of us. We will, as we go forward, I have entitled today's message as Advent, Authority, Action, and Reaction. These three things that we will see today from Mark chapter 1, verse 16 to 45. This ministry is basically focused in Galilee, which we see. And here from verses 16 to 45, we see 5 stories are there. Generally, we over there see and there are 5 stories, or stories that are written in Mark's gospel, and they are given in short format, small stories which are given there. So first story which we see over there is the call of 4 fishermen from verses 16 to 20. Then we go on to see the confrontation with the scribes, with the experts of the law, teachers of the law, and the demonic powers that we see over there. And then we see a summary statement over there where Jesus is spending a day in his life. And how do we look into it? That's what the third portion, that's what we see. And then there is a portion where Jesus emphasizes his mission from verses 35 to 39. And the last portion that we will see is the healing of the leper. That's what we see from verses 40 to 45. As we enter into this text, you see a map over there. This is basically the map of Palestine. And in Palestine, the smaller portion that we see is Galilee. Palestine is divided into 3 states or provinces that we see, which is Galilee, Samaria, and Judea. And this is the portion, the northern portion of Palestine, where Jesus' initial ministry, where here we see, you can see in that map that the Sea of Galilee, also the main chunk of today's portion has happened in Capernaum, which is underlined over there. So that is the portion. And you see that small town is close to the Sea of Galilee, where the fishermen used to catch fish and all those things. So that's where Jesus started his ministry. And that's where we see the kingdom taking form and people being called into it. And Jesus calls his disciples. So when we see the first portion, as I have entitled my message as Advent, Authority, and Action and Reaction, we have already looked into it, that these stories are not just small, like he wants to highlight something, or just give us a glimpse of the Jesus's ministry when he started when he started proclaiming the good news. We see over here is that this ministry which Jesus starts over here is it's not just no, it's not just the glimpses of few things that we see over there, but especially we see that it is the new spirit empowered reality that burst from heaven. Heaven's torn open, a voice came from heaven, and that's what we see. And in the baptism of Jesus Christ, and we see that thing also in when we read chapter 2 verses 20, 21 and 22. Over there we see that a parable that is used, which says that no one sews a patch of unshrunk cloth on an old garment, otherwise the new piece will pull away the old, making the tear worse. And no one pours new wine into old wineskins, otherwise the wine will burst the skins, and both the wine and the wineskins will be ruined. So here we see that God is not trying to patch the old with the new, or doing some jugaad over there. But here we see that God is bringing something new, or doing really a new work over there. And that's we see an initiation in the Old Testament. That's where we see that the king has inaugurated the kingdom. When Jesus started preaching, we see in chapter 1 over there, it tells us that Jesus, after John was put into prison, he went into Galilee and proclaiming the good news, where he says that the time has come, the kingdom of God is near, repent and believe. So that is the message that comes, and that is the kingdom, the initiation of the kingdom that we start with, that we see over there. And then we also see, like we had seen in Psalm 2 verses 7, and then Genesis chapter 3 verses 15, we see that the son, the seed will crush the enemy. These things we have already seen in the previous previous session that we did over there. And then we also see the final portion. The son, he is king, he is son, but he is a servant. God is coming, God is sending his son. His son is a servant, and who restores through suffering. That's what we see. And the special thing about Mark is, which is different from other two gospels, and that we call synoptic gospels, is that in Mark's gospel, we don't see the birth narrative. We directly see that Jesus going into ministry, and he is he's proclaiming the good news. When we talk about Advent, especially, we always come across the birth narratives and all the description that is given in Luke and Matthew's gospel. John's gospel, we take it separately, but that's what we see over here. The Advent which Mark wants to show us is the kingdom being introduced and people being called in. The disciples are called into the ministry, and there is a firm calling that we see. So here we definitely don't see the birth of Jesus Christ, but we do see the birth of the disciples. What Mark chooses to show us is not as soon as he starts. That's why we see that in Mark's gospel we see the works of Jesus Christ being focused over here. So when you see Mark's gospel, the initial thing is not the birth of Jesus Christ, but initially we are told about the birth of disciples, and disciple being the most crucial. The theme of one of the themes, most crucial themes of Mark's gospel, as we were discussing in when we were doing the introduction, that Mark was written in the time when the church was going through persecution and a lot of suffering. And the greatest or the teaching that Mark wants to present, and Peter was telling Mark, was that discipleship entails suffering. Discipleship does not come without a cost. It does not come without suffering. So that's where it started, and that's what we see in from verses 16 onwards. When we go forward, we see the first thing that we see over there is casting in disciples. So I have entitled it like this way. So here Jesus is calling his disciples. Now, when we talk about casting and all those things, we might get a picture that you are worthy or you have some skills so that you are called for this. But here we see that there's something different over there. When you come to this portion, I request you all to come to Mark's Gospel, chapter 1, verses 16 onwards. As we read over there, you see, it is written over there, as Jesus walked beside the Sea of Galilee, he saw Simon and his brother Andrew casting a net into the lake. Now, for they were fishermen. Jesus told them, he said, "Come, follow me," Jesus said, "and I will send you out to fish for people." At once they left their nets and followed him. Now, when you see this this passage, Mark does not choose, or the author of this gospel does not choose to tell us what was the qualifications or how many times Jesus met these disciples, what their conversations between them, or did he say something to convince them. Though in Matthew and Luke we see things like that, but here directly we see that Jesus Christ is coming forth and calling them, and he chooses this incident to be the first. Not any healing, not any miracle, but the first thing he chooses to write is calling of the disciples, and that is very very different. That's what we see in Mark's gospel. And as we see in this, like these people, both Simon and Andrew, and also when we see James and John, they were in the middle of the work. They were doing something in the middle of the work, and they were casting two of them were casting their nets, which means like they were not having boats, or they were not well-off people. Talking about Andrew and Simon. But when we go to the next portion from 19 to 20, there we see Zebedee's children, James and John. They were having a boat, preparing their nets, and they had hired men also. So they were little well-off people. And you see that both kinds of people, even when you go in chapter 2, there you see Matthew, who is not liked, or a tax collector being not liked by anyone, is being chosen by Jesus Christ. So Jesus, it's not calling his disciples or based on their qualifications or what qualifies them to join my kingdom, but he's making the initiation. Now, that's what we see when we started Mark's gospel from verses 1 to 16, that God has initiated this kingdom. God is the one who is starting this, starting this work of salvation in Jesus Christ, and God is the one, Jesus himself is the one who is calling it. Sometimes we can say different things about these people, these Andrew and Simon, or James and John. We can say a lot of things, that they were doing their work, or they were like this and they were like that. But here the emphasis of Mark is not what these people were doing, or what these fishermen were doing. His emphasis was who is calling them, who is making this call in their life. And he himself being God, Jesus himself being God, and he is calling them. And that is what is more emphatic over here. He's not telling us that these people had some qualifications, but he was telling us that the call that is made in their lives was by Jesus himself, and they were being drawn to it. Sometimes we can think that we have too many qualifications, that's why God chose us. But we see a different picture over here. Here Jesus is represented being the one who is making a call, and he is deciding, and he's telling them, come follow me. Now there are three things that we see over there. Come is now calling, uh, calling to for what? Now coming for what? Coming to follow, and coming to follow who? Coming to follow Jesus Christ. Now these are the three things that we see over there. Like, come follow me. When Jesus Christ says this, now he's calling them. There's been many disciples have followed many prophets and rabbis in the previous days, in the times of Jesus. But here Jesus is not calling them to just follow the law, or the law that is being preached by these scribes and authorities, but he's calling them. That's what we see. He's calling them to follow me. No, Jesus is asking them to follow him, which is very special in this call of discipleship. And this following, he says that you don't have to. Now he's saying that there are no philosophical thoughts or that things that are provided over there, but he's saying that your eyes should be on Jesus and the one following in front of us. Discipleship is following Jesus. It is not about having some great ideas or having some great philosophical thoughts, but it is keeping your eyes on Jesus. And that's what is so special over here. And that's what we see in this portion. And he says that I will send you to fish for people. Fishing is when he says that you are, I will make you fishers of men, or I will send you to fish out people. Now over there you see that now when a fish is caught, fishing is being used as a judgment thing in the Old Testament. And when fish is caught, the life no longer remains in water. No, the life transforms drastically. The fish cannot remain in water when the fish hook goes in the gills, or when a fish is caught into the when the fish is caught in the fisherman's net. Now the life is transforming drastically. That's what we see, the picture that is presented. Now when we are called out, we are no longer there in the water, or there is a drastic transformation which happens when Jesus Christ hooks us, or when Jesus Christ calls us. And that's what is so special when we see in this paragraph, or this portion that we come across. And he goes on, see, he says that I will make you fishers of I will send you out to fish people. So fishing people just not is basically that I will send you out. You see that who is making that call on those disciples, that I will send you out to fish for people, or to serve people. Basically he is calling out, and that is the picture that is presented in Mark's gospel, that Son of Man did not come to be served, but to serve, and give his life ransom for many. So that is the main portion that we see, that where he calls to fish out people is serving. Serving is the one thing which is emphasized over here. And in both the portions, if you see in verses 18, it says, at once they left their nets and followed him. And in 20 also you will see, it says, without delay he called them, and they left their father Zebedee in the boat with hired men and followed him. When the kingdom is initiated, the call is for repentance and faith. In repentance, what do we see? We heard last time that in repentance, the sick is being cured, or the sick is called, taken to the physician. Sick needs a physician. And he's saying that only Lord can deliver him. He makes him his Lord. But the next portion which we see is after that call is made in your life and you repent and you believe in Jesus, the next thing that comes in their life is living and following. What do you have to leave? Here we see they left their nets and followed Jesus Christ. In the second thing, they left their father Zebedee, the hired men and the boats, everything, and followed Jesus Christ. Now, what are you asked to leave? Sometimes we think that when God is calling us and we are asked, we asked to follow Him. We think, what are we asked to leave? Are we asked to leave this or that or this or that? No. Here we see the picture that is presented, that we are asked to leave everything, whatever was there behind. First thing, that they were in the middle of their work. Sometimes when we see that thing in Luke's gospel also, where Jesus is asking one person to follow him. He says, let me bury my father. Now he says, dead will bury dead. And the next person says, let me say goodbye to my family. He said, no one, if you have kept your hand on the plow, you are not allowed to look back, but you are only allowed to proclaim the kingdom of God. And that portion is emphasizing something. Sometimes we might have excuses and say to Jesus Christ that let me finish this thing, or let me. Disciples did not say, let us for the day, let us catch this fish and we will cook it and then come and give it to our family and then come and follow you. Or let us leave our father over there and then we will come and follow you. He's in the middle of the work, wherever God is calling you. Sometimes I was a person who was making many excuses before God when God was trying to call me. I said, God, I will try to work. I will stand on my feet. The local idiom that we use, let me, मैं अपने पैरों पे खड़े हो जाता हूँ, तब मैं सेवा करूँगा करके. That let me stand on my feet and then I will come and serve you. But here the call is not like that. Now see the call that is made in the lives of these disciples. They are asked to come follow this Jesus Christ. Now, come follow me. Jesus asked them to come follow him. Nothing is written, nothing is provided for us to think that they were convinced by Jesus. Jesus met them for so many times. Jesus did so many things for them. Nothing is written over there. Jesus asked them to follow him, and they followed him in the middle of their work, leaving everything. If God is trying to call you today in the middle of your work, and asking you to leave everything, what will your response be? Will you make excuses saying, let me prepare myself and then I will come? Or at once, that this word at once or without delay used many times in Mark's gospel, immediately tells us the urgency and promptness that kingdom requires. There is no time. There is an urgency to follow Jesus Christ. There is a promptness that is needed to follow Jesus Christ. And the call, it is not about what you look about yourself, but the call that is made in your life, that call is by Jesus Christ, and he is the Son of God, where the heavens torn open. As sometimes we see that a man being declared as God, that is the normal tendency or normal picture that we see in the people who become famous or become God-men kind of a thing. But here the picture is different. Heavens being torn open, God's voice being coming down, and the Holy Spirit resting on him declares that he is not coming down from top, but that God himself is coming down and calling us. What will our response be when Jesus Christ calls us? When we go forward, I will talk few more things about discipleship in the coming portion. Now, I would like to move from this portion to our next portion, where he comes across, here he's calling his disciples. The first thing is not a miracle. First thing is not a healing. First thing is a call that Jesus Christ makes in the lives of his disciples, that you come, follow me. Coming, following, and keeping our eyes on Jesus. As we move forward, now we see over there, now the next thing which I talked about, the advent of the kingdom, and then we see the authority of the Son of Man. The next portion that we see over there is the authority of the Son of Man. Son of Man. Now, he uses this phrase for himself. Jesus uses this phrase for himself many times, and it is not just son of a man kind of a thing, like he's born of a man, or he's man's child kind of a thing, but it is a divine phrase that is used across Old Testament, and also now Jesus is using for himself. And there his authority is established. What is he saying? Supremacy over both demonic world and the teaching of Torah experts. The scribes, the law, the teachers, the experts who were sitting over there. When he starts, he says that supremacy over both demonic world and the teaching of Torah experts. So in this we see that the disciples are called, the first step that we see, and the call is so evident and prominent that there is no looking back but to following Jesus Christ. And that's what we see in verses 16 to 20. Then we follow on. Here Jesus Christ challenges the old traditions, the rabbinical traditions that were there. Now verses 21 to 28, we will in a while go to that portion and try to understand what that portion teaches us. And then the claims that Jesus Christ makes, the claims that he has authority to forgive sins, he has authority over demon and Satan, and he has authority. Son of Man is the Lord of Sabbath. And these prerogatives or these claims cannot be made by man. It is made by God himself, and God only can make these claims. That's why the opposition that was coming towards Jesus, that's why there were a lot of people were trying to kill him. In chapter 3, we see that they are plotting to kill Jesus Christ. Because the claims that he made was very much offensive for them. But here Jesus talks about, the next portion that we see is from verses 21 to 28, where we see the casting out. I started with casting in, and now I'm moving into casting out of Satan. Chapter 3, verses 27 gives us a glimpse of how what is Jesus in his ministry proclaiming. When we see chapter 3, verses 27, he says over there, he's being challenged over there. And verses 27 says over there, it says, in fact, no one can enter a strong man's house without first tying him up. Then he can plunder the strong man's house. So binding the strong man who had control over our lives. And that's what we see in the portion where we see from verses 21 to 28. Now, the possession of demonic powers, the possession of Satan over a person's life, and Jesus Christ is claiming authority over that, supremacy over that, and also claiming authority over traditions. Now, when we see chapter 1, we read in verse 21. It says they went to Capernaum, and when the Sabbath came, Jesus went into the synagogue and began to teach. Now, I want you to halt for some time here, and just to look at this verse where it says they went to Capernaum, and when Sabbath came, Jesus went into the synagogue and began to teach. We see a lot of times, why is he going inside the synagogue, or why is he going to synagogue? We see that he's going to synagogue to teach. Sometimes we say that, why are we going to the church? just we sometimes we don't emphasizing teaching at all, but in Jesus Christ, we in Jesus's life and ministry, that's what we see every time. No, I will show you portions. I can show you portions after portions where he goes in to teach. When you see chapter 2 and read verses 2 over there, what is it written? It is written, they gathered in such large numbers that there was no room left, not even outside the door, and he preached the word to them. You see over there, when he came into the synagogue, he started to teach. He went into the house, he started to preach over there, proclaiming the kingdom. When you come to verses 13, chapter 2, verses 13, over there also you see, once again, Jesus went out beside the lake. A large crowd came to him, and he began to teach them. Now, and verses after verses. In chapter 3, you can see that. In chapter 4, now he himself says that I sow the seed. In all these portions, what is being emphasized? Sometimes we see when we go to the church and it says we for getting we are healing, and come for healing, come for miracles, come for this, come for that. But Jesus, in all, whenever he started, he started his ministry. It is not written that he started with a healing, taking out the demon or healing somebody, but it started that he began to teach. How much emphasis do we give to the teaching in our churches? How much emphasis do we give? Sometimes we see that there are long sessions of singing and dancing and a lot of things like healing and miracles and all those things that we see, but very less emphasis given to the teaching of the word. But Jesus, when he entered into the synagogue, we see that he is teaching, and we see that again and again and again. As we see, come back to chapter 1 and see that portion from verses 21 to 28, we see over there that he began to teach. That people were amazed at his teaching, because he taught them as one who had authority, not as the teachers of the law. He taught them as one who has authority and not as the teachers of the law. So when you see that the teacher, the one who is preaching, the one who is teaching, his message comes with authority, and people recognizes that authority. In verse 27, you see over there, it says that the people were so amazed that they asked, "What is this? A new teaching and with authority?" And in between that, he was a person in that synagogue who was demon possessed. The demon was represented, and he came out over there, and that's what we see. And Jesus Christ he's rebuking that demon. He's commanding the demon very sternly, and it comes out of him. And they says, what do they say? Wow, what a good miracle that he has done. But what is written over there in verse 27, a new teaching and with authority. He doesn't say that it is with a new miracle. That's what we saw over there, or a new thing that we saw over there. But he says a new teaching and with authority. In between, when you read, just as he was teaching, and the people were amazed at his teaching, and because he taught them as one who had authority, not as the teachers of the law. What was the content of the teaching is not mentioned over there. What did Jesus preach is not mentioned over there. It is just written that he taught, and it was coming with authority, and it was unlike the scribes or teachers of the law, those who were preaching, those who were teaching them in the synagogues. No, when you see chapter 7 verses 8 onwards, Mark chapter 7 verses 8 onwards, there you see that what kind of teaching or what was their emphasis in the teaching. Now he says, no, you. It says that you have let go of the commands of God and are holding on to human traditions. The commands of God. The problem with these scribes was they were leaving away the commands of God and holding the human traditions. And he continued, you have a fine way of setting aside the commands of God in order to observe your own traditions. Now, the different thing that we see in Jesus Christ's teaching, or a different thing that we see which Jesus proclaims over here, is this new teaching is not upholding the traditions, or sometimes that we see that we keep traditions above than all the things, above than the word, above than the authority of the scriptures. Our traditions are being held over that. But that's where Jesus, now he is telling them, it is not about the human traditions. It is not about, no, they have left the commands of God and they have gone to uplift or to emphasize the human traditions. Or just we can say they were just making some theological or some philosophical thoughts over there, but nothing was being worked out in the lives of people. But here we see when Jesus started teaching, no, it brought transformation in the lives of people. They are a demon-possessed person. Now, sometimes we undermine the work of demons, or we say that this is like we say that this is more of a psychological thing rather than being a spiritual thing or things like that. No, you see in Mark's gospel, he makes that difference between sickness and between a demon possession. No, he makes that difference between those two things: what is being a sickness and what is being demon possessed. No, sometimes we undermine the role, the demonic forces that work in our lives. But here, Jesus is casting out that demon, restoring that person. No, that here we see in Mark's gospel, he says, and this demon is identifying Jesus. What do you want with us, Jesus of Nazareth? Have you come to destroy us? I know who you are. You are the Holy One of God. And he says those lot of things. And what does Jesus tell him? No, speak more good things about me. Speak, tell this also and tell that also about me. You know, he's calling him Holy One of Israel, and say a little more. I should be. Sometimes when we see people casting out demons, we see a lot of holahu all around. Like as if they are trying to like remove the person out of him or something like that. No, that's what we. But here Jesus sternly, he said, be quiet and come out of him. No, not more than 5-6 words. Doing interviews, yeah. Right now, what is your name? What is no? We say all these things about him, but Jesus is telling, be quiet and come out of him. And the demon shirks that person. It says the impure spirit shook that man violently and came out of him with a shirk. We might undermine the role of demonic forces, but here it is written, the first thing, as a man of God, as a person or people of God, here only, after being called for discipleship or called to follow him, the first thing we are going against is mentioned over here. We are going against the forces of darkness. We are going against the kingdom of Satan, which is represented over here. So Jesus, he's saying that we have a battle. We have a battle. We have to fight that battle against these forces. And it is not like we have to do a lot of things to fight those forces. He has won that victory. It is not our thinking and emphasis should be, Satan did this. Some of the preachings, when then they start speaking about, no, Satan did this, Satan did that, Satan did this. No, everything is Satan and nothing is about God. Whereas now our focus should not be on now learning things of demons, but following Jesus. No, simply our focus should be following Jesus. No, our focus should be, no, this battle is there, but a victor is there with us. No, so a victor who has already won that victory. That's what we read in Ephesians also. In his resurrection, no, he has won over all the forces of darkness, the principalities and authorities. No, he has proclaimed victory. That's what is Paul praying in that prayer in chapter 1. No, he has declared victory over all those forces, the authorities and principalities. Here we see both those things. The teachers of the law who were trying to enforce the human traditions in between people, and the demonic forces, no, who was trying to separate, no, making a divide. This person is not is a victim of being a demon possessed, and Jesus pulls that kingdom out of him and restores him, pulls that dark forces, that demon out of him and restores him. Sometimes in casting out demon, we hurt that person so badly, no, there's nothing left in that person. But here we see that Jesus is, no, restoring this person. And that's when they see and say, people were so amazed that they asked each other, what is this? A new teaching, and with authority. He gives orders to impure spirit and they obey him. People of God, there is a battle that we go against. The Satan, who has now, which we see from Genesis onwards, is trying to separate us from God. But here Jesus Christ now proclaiming his kingdom, and this battle becomes fierce. As we go into chapter 6, there is a legion standing in front of him. He says, I'm legion. No, that battle becomes fierce as he goes forward. But he asks them to be quiet. Why is he asking them to be quiet? No, he should say, tell about me, go tell about me. No, I am so big person of God, I'm the man of God, you should tell about me. No, this is not the picture which Jesus Christ wants to give us as a miracle worker or the one who is casting out demon. Not this picture. No, where is he recognized as the Son of God? Where he's recognized as Son of God, no, in the proclamation which God makes from heaven, and also the second proclamation that we see on the cross, where centurion says that he's definitely the Son of God. His identity is not in casting out demon, but his identity. Now that's why whole of the time when people were trying, no, even we see that his disciples were trying to stop him from that cross. No, that's where Jesus tells Peter, get behind me, Satan. No, because he doesn't want to. Peter was going and trying to stop Jesus. No, you cannot suffer. You cannot go on the cross. But you see the picture which Jesus wants to present in front of us is not of being a miracle worker or not being doing exorcisms and all those things. But he wants to give us a picture. The Savior, the servant who has come to serve, has given you life. And the place where you identify him is on the cross. That's where the centurion who does not believe in, that the Roman centurion said, he definitely was the Son of God. That's where, now I have to move quickly forward. We have less time and we have a lot of things to cover. That's where we see, we go into the next portion of verses 29 onwards, where we see, now as soon as they left the synagogue, they went with James and John to the home of Simon and Andrew. This is the one day that Jesus is spending. Now, how his one day is, that's what we see from 29 to 35. Now, very the thing that we read from the previous portion is that the teacher is teacher is not just proclaiming some words or philosophical thoughts into us. His teaching is shown in the work that he casts out demons. So his work is not separated from the teacher. The second thing that we see is this authority comes from the person of Jesus Christ and not just from his teaching. The authority that Jesus proclaims comes from the person of Jesus Christ. No, that's where we see that we cannot separate Jesus from his teaching. The moment we separate Jesus from his teaching, the authority loses its value. All the universities and colleges in Europe and a lot of places, they started as theological colleges, but they thought that they will separate. Jesus is becoming too much religious. We will separate Jesus and give the teachings of Jesus. And that's where you see that the teachings loses its power. Teacher is not separate from his teaching. The teacher is with his teaching, and teaching is the one which comes with authority. And teaching, the opposition that he's coming against, the opposition which he faces over there, and he has authority over that opposition. He says to that demon is thrown out from that person, and that is the opposition that he's facing. And after God, the one person who is recognizing him is demon, and that's what we see. Disciples are not recognizing him, but demons, again and again he says that, but that is not the correct understanding. That's why Jesus is asking them to keep quiet. We'll soon move into the next portion, but I just want to know, as in verse 21 says that they went into Capernaum, and when the Sabbath came, Jesus went into the synagogue and began to teach them. Now, and verse 29, when you read, it says, as soon as they left the synagogue, they went with James and John to the home of Simon and Andrew. Now, Jesus is not just limited to synagogues. Now, that's one picture which Mark tries to present again and again over here. He's not limited to the synagogues. He comes out of the synagogue and he serves people. Sometimes we see that balance which is not there. Sometimes there is too much emphasis on being in the synagogue, being in the church, doing all the programs and all the softballs and nets practices and all those things, games and activities that we do. But there is no going out. There is no serving people. Here we see that Jesus, he goes in the synagogue to teach, but comes out to serve people. And that's what we see from verses 29 onwards. Now, as soon as they left the synagogue, they went with James and John to the home of Simon and Andrew. Simon's mother-in-law was in the bed with fever, and they immediately told Jesus about her. So he went to her, took her hand, and helped her. The fever left her, and she began to wait on them. Now, the one thing which we see in this is a very personal story. That's where we understand this story is a testimony of Peter himself. It's a very very personal story, Simon's mother-in-law, and that's where we also understand that this story comes out from the mouth of Peter himself. And also one thing, that in the midst of all the healing and miracles that were happening, we see the small story where Jesus is going into a house of Simon and healing Peter's mother-in-law. And the response response that we see over there, the response that we understand over there, it says that the fever left her and she began to wait on them. The verse, the language that is used over there is response of physical restoration. Response to physical healing and physical wholeness leads to serving him. It is not just waiting on them, or she was giving a cup of tea or anything like that, but it is serving. That is the word that is used over there. It is serving. She began to wait on them. The response of Jesus Christ's work in your life, the ultimate response, or the sudden response that comes out of it is begin serving Jesus Christ. Now that evening after sunset, people, verses 32 onwards, I'm reading, that evening after sunset, people brought to Jesus all the sick and demon possessed, and the whole town gathered at the door, and Jesus healed many who had various diseases. He also drove out many demons, but he would not let the demons speak because he knew who he was. Now we see all the summary statement that is given over there. We see that in chapter 3 also. But here is one thing that I want you to notice. That evening, verse 32 says, that evening after sunset, people brought to Jesus all the sick and demon possessed. And soon after, you see, very early in the morning, while it was still dark, it says, evening, people started coming to Jesus, and then we see over there that very early in the morning, Jesus, while it was still dark, Jesus got up, left the house, and went off to a solitary place where he prayed. Now, in this portion, we see many times we see that Jesus is going in and out. He goes in the synagogue to teach, and then he comes out, he heals and serves. Verses 29 onwards, that's what we see. Here, verse 35 onwards, he says, very early in the morning, while it was still dark, Jesus got up and left his house and went off to a solitary place. And then we see the next portion, which it says, I want you to focus on that. It says, Simon and his companions went to look for him, and when they found him, they exclaimed, everyone is looking for you. The language that is used over here is that they were hunting for Jesus. They were not just looking for Jesus, but they were hunting for Jesus. Why they were hunting for Jesus? The things that it says that everyone is looking for you. Jesus, where are you? Everyone is looking for you. Jesus replied, let us go somewhere else to nearby villages so I can preach there also. That is why I have come. Now, a big difference that we see over there. A big, first of all, there is a going into Father's presence. Jesus is not undermining going to the Father's presence. Two things which are very much, which should be emphasized very much in the churches. The two things which we see in these portions is, first of all, we see that Jesus began to teach, and secondly, we see he went into the prayer. When we say there is prayer meeting, there is nobody turns up. When we say that there is Bible study, people are less over there. But in the first portion itself, first when Jesus started to preach over there, the first thing that we see over there is that Jesus Christ is emphasizing the teaching and also the prayer which is required in even Jesus went into, he is not, it is not his magical powers that is doing everything, or that is healing the sick or casting out the demons. He says, he attributes it, and he says when his strength or authority comes from going into Father's presence. That is where his authority lies. If I was there, I was thinking, if I was there in place of Jesus and people were saying to me, everyone is looking for you, where are you? Where did you go? Everyone is looking. I would be very excited and saying, let's go, let's go, let's go. Everyone is looking for me. Let's not waste time. I'm becoming a popular figure. That's what we see in Luke's gospel also. A lot of people were coming to him. But the next verse we see, he went to a solitary place to pray. Jesus here is not seeking for popularity. That's what is different. That's what lot of people we see. The crowd gathers over there. They are mostly all these healing, big posters, healing meeting, miracle meeting, some prophet is coming. Everything that we see. It only tells. Jesus, first of all, Jesus did not say that come for the healing meeting. He saw the crowd and he started to preach over there. He started to teach over there. He did not call people to come to his healing meetings. And it is very common. If Jesus is there, there is healing. No, if Jesus is there, there is miracle. There is no wonder in that. No? But when people see, no, this disciples are also seeing that Jesus is getting popular and they are following him. No, there must be something. People are looking for him. That they want to feed on that popularity. They want to feed on those popularity that is coming. What is Jesus saying? No, come, let us go and heal some more people. What is Jesus saying? He says, let us go somewhere else. Not to the crowds. He says, let us go somewhere else to nearby villages so I can preach there. That's why I have come. When you go into Father's presence, that's where you know your purpose. And when you go behind closed doors, that's where you understand your purpose and you don't go after popularity. The closed doors are so important in your lives. That's where you see that going in. Jesus was not staying at one place. If he's teaching, he is doing missions also. He's going out to do missions also. And he's going into Father's presence, not to gain popularity or preach popularity, but he came out to, like he says, let us go to some more places and let us preach in those villages also. And that is where that's why I have come. Going in Father's presence, how much you think that going is in. Now sometimes we get so much bogged up. Sometimes we are more busy than Jesus. We are busier than Jesus. We say that, oh, lot of meetings, lot of these things and that things. You see, now after sunset, people started coming to him. Very early morning, before the sun rises, he goes into a solitary place. And that's where, that solitary place, the word that is used over there is used in a lot of places. It uses in John's ministry, desert, he went and preached. And solitary place where Jesus was tempted for 40 days. Those closed doors are the places where divine and the demonic forces collide. And that's where the first victory is won. That is the place. So we must seek for wilderness. That's what I would say, that like we must, rather than seeking for popularity or seeking for more healings and miracles that we see, we would seek the wilderness. That's where God makes us strong and helps us to understand our purposes. My time is running out. I just have one more thing, and that's the last portion that I want to emphasize and finish it. A man with a leprosy. There are a lot of things in Old Testament, Leviticus chapter 13 and 14. We see that a lot of these skin diseases, many kinds of skin diseases that are mentioned over there. Leviticus chapter 13 and 14. If you see in the Old Testament, you will see a lot of mentions about this. But one thing which is very that leper is not doubting his authority. He's coming to Jesus knowing that he can do this thing. Like he says, if you are able, you heal me. If you are able, you make me clean. He's not saying that. In verse 41, he says, he reached out, he says that he came to him, verse 40, a man with leprosy came to him and begged him on his knees, if you are willing, you can make me clean. Now he says, if you are willing, he knows that Jesus can heal him. He knows that Jesus can cleanse him. But he's only asking for his willingness, not his ability to heal him. And Jesus was indignant. In some translations, it is written that Jesus had compassion on him. But in some places, it is written that Jesus got angry. Not angry on that person, but that leper. And when he became angry, what did these lepers basically are the outcasts. They are not allowed to enter into the city. even if a leper is going, he has to shout from his mouth that I am going, or he has to keep shouting so that people remain away from them. Nobody was taking plight for them, whereas Jesus broke all those traditional barriers. And where he now in verse 41, Jesus was indignant. He reached out his hand. Forget coming close to him. No, he's touching him, which is, as a Jew, he's unclean himself now. Where it says that he says, I am willing and be clean. Immediately the leprosy went him. Now, what did Jesus tell him? Go out and tell everyone that that Jesus healed you, and now popularize me. Jesus sent him away at once with strong warning. See that you don't tell to anyone, but go show yourself to priest and offer sacrifices that Moses commanded for your cleansing as a testimony to them. Now, that's the way they have to show that they are being cleansed of leper. The leper has to go to a priest and go and tell over there that I am being cleansed, and the priest gives him a certificate so that he can come in to the town, or he can go back to the community. But here we see that this person, instead, if I was the person, I would have told him, go tell everyone. No, but here Jesus says, no, because he's not seeking for popularity. Now, his popularity increases, that we see every time, but he's not seeking his name. He's not seeking his popularity over there. He says, instead, what happened? Verse 45, we see, instead he went out and began to talk freely, which he's not allowed to. And what happened as a result? Jesus could no longer enter a town openly, but stayed outside in lonely places. Yet the people still came to him from everywhere. You see, this is one in and out, a different in and out, which I want to show you. Leper being an outcast, and he was not allowed into community. Now, when Jesus crosses all the traditional barriers, comes and touches him, breaks all the taboos that were around him, and he touches him and heals him. This leper comes inside, but Jesus goes out. See over there? As a result, Jesus could no longer enter a town openly. Now, this is the picture which I want to show you. Now, when I say the king inaugurates the kingdom, he needs people. He needs people to proclaim his kingdom. He needs disciples. That's where he calls his disciples. He crushes the enemy, the demonic forces, the traditional forces, or the people who were just emphasizing over human traditions. He breaks. He crushes the enemy over there, and we see that in bringing the leper inside, he himself is going out. That's where I want you to leave today. Jesus. We were sinners. We were the outcast. We were outside. But in order to bring us inside, he broke all those barriers, and he called us in. But for that, he himself has to pay a price, and he himself has to be an outcast. He himself became an outcast. And that's what we read in Isaiah chapter 53, verses 11 and 12. Isaiah chapter 53, verses 11 and 12. This is the servant song, which is proclaimed in Isaiah chapter 53. It says in 11 and 12, it says like this: after he has suffered, he will see the light of life and be satisfied by his knowledge. My righteous servant will justify many, and he will bear their iniquities. Therefore, I will give him a portion among the great, and he will divide the spoils with the strong, because he poured out of his life unto death. You see that servant, he poured out his life unto death and was numbered with the transgressors, for he bore the sins of many and made intercession for the transgressors. He is the servant which is proclaimed in Mark's gospel, where he bore our iniquities for bringing us inside, for bringing us into the flock. He himself became an outcast. That's where Jesus is is showing us his care and his protection and what he did for us. He himself was cast out for that, so that we could be brought in. That's the portion I wanted you to show. Now the last portion where you see the action and reaction. The last portion where we see the disciples and the crowds. The difference between the disciples and the crowds. That's the response towards the kingdom. The disciples act, but the crowds react. Disciples act in the way radical obedience. Whenever they are called, they say yes and follow in the middle of everything. But crowds, they are amazed at everything. Disciples walk along for preaching the good news. They walk with Jesus, and that's where Jesus teaches them on the way, which is emphasized. But whereas we see crowds are gathering now in chapter 2, in chapter 3, we see they are pressing him. They are hunting him for needs, looking for him. In John chapter 6, that's what you see. They are searching for him. They want to make him king because he provided them that bread. But that's not how Jesus wanted to be a king. Now, here we see that he wants to, the disciples preach good news with Jesus Christ, but whereas crowd stops, he says, don't go anywhere. Stay here. Be in midst of us. Don't go to another village. Stay here. They halt the good news from being proclaimed. Disciples seek wilderness, whereas crowd feed on popularity. Disciples wait on him. They serve, but whereas the crowd wait for him to be served. They demand service. Jesus should come and heal them. Some of the times when we say, I proclaim this, I claim this. Who are you to command Jesus to claim this? You want Jesus to serve you, or you want to serve Jesus? Sometimes there is a lot of I. That's what Pastor Blessing was online. It is more of I-centered than following Jesus. There's one portion that we go into the next session where these 4 people who made every way possible to take the needy to the Jesus, but crowd stopped the needy to come to Jesus. That's where that paralyzed man was that terrace was opened and he was being brought in, whereas crowd was cramping the door and they were not allowing the needy to reach to Jesus. The disciples act, the crowds react. Where do we stand today? Where are we today? That's the portion which I want to speak and introduce to you. And this is what is carried in, where he says now that we see about insiders and outsiders as we go in chapter 4, where he says that mysteries of kingdom is proclaimed to the insider, but outsiders it is proclaimed in parables. That's where we see that disciples cling along with Jesus. Chapter 3, he asks them to be with him, before going anywhere, or walk along with Jesus Christ. That's what is asked of us as disciples. He is the king that inaugurates, that proclaims. It is not just being old being patched to the new one, but a new reality being proclaimed, new spirits empowerment. Ezekiel chapter 36, that's what we read. And then we see that the son crushing the enemy, and servant suffering for us, our need, for us. That's where now we see the picture of Jesus Christ. Whereas the popular preachers have made him just a spectacle to be popular figures, to feed on his popularity, to squeeze everything out of him. Whereas Jesus is asking us to come, follow me. Now, in these times, Jesus asks us to fix our eyes on Jesus, the one who is calling you. Not demanding and squeezing everything out of it, but be available for him, and saying, whether he asks us in the middle of anything or he asks us to give away everything, we be ready for Jesus. May God bless you all, and God bless that let us not just be reactive like the crowds, but act as disciples. May God bless you all.